There's nobody in the place. She says, if I throw a 20 in the bucket, we let my husband play a song with y'all? And the answer is always yes.
And that's in Nashville.
In Nashville, yeah, on Broadway. You're looking live.
You are looking live at the Texas Motor Speedway, site of today's AAA Texas 500. Cashing tickets is what it's all about. So let's head to the studio for today's edition of Racer's Odds. Here's your host, John Roberts.
Hello, everyone. So glad you are with us alongside of Jeff Hammond and Steve Makinen. I am John Roberts, and we are here with Racer's Odds to give you all the information and statistics up to date and latest, and all the changes on the lines and the odds to help you make the wise wager when it comes to NASCAR's Top Series. Now, if you like your racing fast, you've come to the right place. Almost 200 miles an hour into the corners here, and that will test even the best in NASCAR. The intensity is at an all-time high. There are 3 races before we will crown a champion. So, Jeff Hammond, you've spent a lot of time at Texas over the years. This is a racetrack that is new on surface, but they spent a lot of time trying to make it old. And they have ground this track in. They have got rubber down on the racetrack, and they also have a granite surface there that dries a little bit faster. This is going to be a tough one to deal with today.
It is, and right now, let's not forget that they have the folks at Texas have also incorporated the PJ1 for the second trip to Texas this year. Temperatures are a little bit cooler today, warmer than what it's been during practice sessions, so it can factor in before you know it. The key thing is we really believe this racetrack's going to widen out. We're going to see some great side-by-side racing, and with so much stuff up for grabs as far as the playoffs are concerned, plus guys are trying to get to victory lane for the first time. They're on the outside looking in. They got points to prove. And what we've seen last weekend at Martinsville, I think we're going to see the continuation this weekend when they drop the green flag.
Steve Makinen, the first thing he told us early this week was watch out for Kevin Harvick. And guess what happened? He went out there and blistered him in qualifying. He's up there on the pole. He's at the top of your simulation. So this is definitely a driver to watch today, as he's not the odds-on favorite to win the race, but he could definitely be a guy that takes the trophy home.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you go through the list of all the tracks we race at, this would have to be considered number one for Kevin Harvick. This weekend, he seems to be, if you want to call it a dogfight with Denny Hamlin. They've both been pretty impressive going in the weekend, and they are rightfully the odds-on favorites to win today.
So when you talk about Denny Hamlin, of course, he has been in the headlines for different reasons throughout the course of these playoffs. The latest for a little ongoing feud between Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin. Now, race fans, you want to take that into consideration when you're looking at picking a driver to perhaps win one of these races, as to how many enemies he might have out on the racetrack. And one guy who knows for sure that he doesn't want enemies around is the only guy who has won his way into the championship for that, of course, being Martin Truex Jr.
I'd prefer not to piss anyone off. You know, I mean, honestly, it's we're going to race hard, try to win, but we don't need any enemies, you know. So we'll just do our normal deal, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't think we do anything different than a normal weekend. I don't think we do anything different than we did at Martinsville last weekend. We always try to do the best we can for everyone on our team and all our sponsors, and again, ourselves. You know, we want to win. We have a lot of confidence. We've got great equipment, a great team. Why not take advantage of it?
Yeah, exactly. Great confidence for Martin Truex, because, of course, he, again, is the only guy who has punched his ticket so far. But it is very important for him, like he said, not to anger anybody else on the racetrack. Martin Truex Jr. opened up at plus 500, finds himself at plus 800 right now. Jeff Hammond, how important is it when you're looking to pick a driver that he doesn't have enemies out there, because we've seen that really be really costly to some championship contenders.
No, he is definitely one of the guys you can kind of call one of the more gentleman racers on the track currently. And as you've already pointed out, he is locked into Homestead. So really whatever happens is not going to affect him getting to Homestead. But I think what's kind of wild is to watch his odds basically go up versus coming down after winning at Martinsville. But he's had a couple of wins, as far as the 1.5 miles this year. He's really good on these 1.5 miles. So with not having any pressure on him, I think it kind of opens the playbook for Cole Pern and him to try some stuff that might help them later on once we get down to Homestead. And somebody says, well, they're not exactly the same racetracks. That's not what I'm talking about, folks. Just tendencies as far as shock packages, overall balance, and different things they can do at a racetrack like Texas, where you're carrying so much speed. If you can get that balance figured out here, it can help you in a place like Homestead.
So, Steve, let's take a look at the odds to win the race for the individual drivers. These are sometimes pretty difficult bets to wager. That's why we see the odds next to them that we do. And, of course, Denny Hamlin is the one that's leading the way right now with Kevin Harvick not too far behind him, Steve.
Yeah, if you look at the board, it's pretty clear cut that the odds makers are looking at 3 specific favorites here, I guess. Hamlin, Harvick, and then Kyle Busch here. The ironic thing about that is those are the 3 that are not locked into Homestead yet that were supposed to be there. So I find it interesting that they're favored here. It's almost like they're counting on the fact that one of these guys is going to punch his ticket today. Which one, we'll find out. But the odds board is pretty clear on who they're looking at as the potential winners today.
Okay, so Kyle Busch opened up at plus 500, finds himself currently at plus 500. This is a 3-time Texas winner who was starting in the 12th position. And Hammond, I don't think you can ever write off Kyle Busch no matter where you are. Or it seems like he's just kind of waiting in the weeds. If someone's looking at betting him at plus 500 right now, again, that's almost never a bad bet.
No, but I really think that there's some vulnerability in the 18 car right now. Everybody keeps talking about, his lack of focus, his hit and miss type scenario throughout the playoffs so far. His insurance points are the one thing that's keeping him in his head above water and giving him some confidence that he should be able to wind up making it to Homestead. And then maybe they can kind of turn things on and all of a sudden become relevant when it comes to being up front where we're used to seeing him. Currently, I know what you're saying. It's hard to bet against him, but I think you're going to find out a little bit later on. I'm not quite too sure that he's as good as you want to make him out to be.
Well, his brother, Kurt Busch, if you ever thought he was going to hang it up at the end of this year, he definitely put to rest any of those rumors, as Chip Ganassi Racing and Kurt Busch have decided to continue on with the Monster Energy sponsor. They're going to be around for a while. So what we have now is a very confident Kurt Busch going into this weekend, and that's where we're going to kick off our sure bets of the week. And I'm going to lead us off, guys, because I feel as if up against William Byron, that we may find Kurt Busch being pretty. I'll give up the minus 150 because look at the starting position. The average finish is not that different, but Kurt Busch has actually scored a win a few years back at Texas, and I feel like this is a pretty strong one, judging by the fact that this gentleman has some confidence behind him with a renewed contract situation. So, Steve Makinen, what do you think? What's your bet of the week?
Well, first off, John, I'd like to say I like your bet. So
well, thank you. Thank you.
That was actually on my
good.
short list of things I was going to consider as well. And I'd like to hear more about what we talk about throughout the show here. And I might jump on that one as well. But my bet of the week is going to be on Ryan Blaney. He is a underdog, actually, in this one to Kyle Larson. Blaney has been solid at Texas. He DNF'd here in the spring, however. He led 45 laps that day. He's led 233 laps at Texas since 2017. He's usually out front here. He seems to be a dark horse in this whole playoff race, and I like his chances to get the win in this matchup today.
Yeah, Steve, also with Kyle Larson, 3 of the last 4 races here, he's DNF'd with an accident. So with that in mind, Jeff Hammond, where are you going?
Well, number one, I'm going to back up what Steve said about his pick. I like that right there because, again, last year he finished second in this race, coming in with some momentum and knowing what he's got to get done. But I also want to say, Steve, thank you for the information you got sent out to us earlier in the week on Tuesday. I got a chance to look at the odds there, saw how you felt about Kevin Harvick. I knew how I felt. My notes were telling me. The cool thing about it is, guys, I was able to jump on the opening bid between Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick, when Kevin Harvick was at plus 120 against Kyle Busch minus 140. And if you look at the current odds, that's a total flip-flop. But I got in early, and I got me a piece of the action, Steve. So thank you for that information. Made me feel a whole lot better about betting that early in the week.
Hey, that's fantastic. That is some great line shopping there. And those of us who prepare earlier in the week can often catch some good value because, I mean, what reason was there to think that Harvick was not going to have good speed this weekend? And why would his odds move from what we've seen so far or yesterday? So there's no reason to think that. I mean, he was going to be fast. So good job shopping and getting the value early.
Well, like I say, you have an opportunity to be working with somebody like you, and you see this from your side of the world as well as from my side of the world, both of us realizing and knowing these should be, and nothing else, even money, and that would just be like a normal, one-on-one bet. But, man, they're giving you something. I mean, it's like, here's a value. And, folks, that's the one thing that Steve is trying to impress upon you, and I like to try to think I know what I'm saying. When I look at a number like this early in the week and say, man, I'd like to maybe see a little bit more, I agree, but I just couldn't believe it was going to change as much as it did. And I was just kind of blown away, sitting on the pole. And I think the key thing is, if he's in that car he won Indy with, I feel even more confident about making this bet.
So that's a question that we definitely need to answer along the way there. Kevin Harvick is one of those favorites. It's just a good time to remind you that what the line is when you make your wager, that is what that's the odds that you get. So Hammond getting in early on that, doesn't matter what the odds are now. It was the odds as they laid when he placed his wagers. So for the answer to the question about Kevin Harvick and his Indianapolis 400 car, let's now go trackside to Pat Patterson.
Well, good afternoon, guys, from Fort Worth, Texas, from the Texas Motor Speedway, where we're set today to go racing in the Monster Energy Cup Series, and what a day we have got for you. Yes, it's another critical day for the playoff contenders here at Texas. One of them is on the pole today, and that's Kevin Harvick, and I know one of the questions you guys are asking, can this guy, after winning with this car at Indy, pull off another big win and punch his ticket to Homestead to fight for the championship? I don't know. Remember, this is an impound race, so I'm not sure how good the other cars are. We know his was fastest, but the question is he set up for racing, or is he more set up to win that pole position here today? That's going to be the big question as the race starts today.
But the thing is, Pat, I'm curious also about the weather out there as far as the temperature's cooler than what it was early in the year, and how's that PJ1 faring, or what do they think is it going to be like in today's conditions?
Great people.
Yeah,
great
I know
products.
everybody's asking about the PJ1. It's the sticky stuff they put in the corners to give the cars more grip, and it's been put from basically the first lane of the racetrack up to the top. You'll be able to see it clearly on the broadcast today. How much of a difference will it make today? Cool temperatures is not its friend, but it's going to be warmer today than it has been. Don't forget, the Xfinity Series race ran here last night. There's rubber on it, and hopefully it's going to get warm enough this afternoon here in Texas so that we got an opportunity to see how all of that will work out as far as the PJ1's concerned. We know this much. Texas is fast. Man, they get into the corners here really, really quick. Today it's going to be all about not making mistakes and trying to beat those Gibbs cars. That's what Stuart Haas has got to do today, and Penske may have something to say about it before it's all over with. Enjoy the race from Fort Worth.
Pat, thank you very much. And also, we're talking about over 200 miles per hour heading into these corners. And now with the PJ1 or the VHT, if you're unfamiliar with this substance, it's simply a sticky substance they used in the NHRA and drag racing for years, and now recently some of these Speedway motorsports tracks are using this to get more racing area. And Hammond, whether you like it or dislike it or not, the fact of the matter is it's provided much better racing for us.
Yeah, it really has, and I think the main thing is NASCAR as well as Goodyear has been looking for ways to try to widen these racetracks out because everybody's complaining about we're running the same speed. How can you pass if you're following the guy? You got to have a way to pull out and get around him. And that's what the idea is, folks. When you widen the racetrack out, you make this thing instead of a single lower groove racetrack, now you got a middle groove. And I like to call it the Kyle Larson lane up high. They get a little bit of PJ1 up there. The next thing you know, these cars will stick and we can race all over the racetrack.
So we have 3 races left to go before we will crown a champion in NASCAR's top series. One driver, Martin Truex Jr., has already punched his ticket to the Championship 4. We're going to dive into the head-to-head matchups and the odds and the simulation when we come back to Racers Odds. Stay with us.
A numbers game with Gil Alexander.
Ladies and gentlemen, our pleasure to have Jeremy Piven in studio.
I'm really good friends with Julian Edelman. He and I are very similar size and almost identical, except he's an elite athlete. I'm not. Other than that, everything lines
Same
up.
person.
Yeah, same. I run the same routes.
Every time we see Julian Edelman on Sunday, we'll be thinking of you.
There you go.
A numbers game with Gil Alexander. Weekdays from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern. VSiN.com and Sirius XM 204. VSiN, the news you need to win.
If you suffer from heartburn or other digestive-related disorders, then there is a new, safe, better, and natural alternative to better digestive wellness and heartburn relief. Praxid not only provides relief of heartburn, but Praxid takes a 360-degree approach to support better digestion, protect you from harmful bacteria, and also balance your stomach to improve digestive functions.
To order, call now, 1-800-829-5735. That's 1-800-829-5735.
Before the pros tee off for this week's golf tournament, the VSiN experts help you make the cut on long shots.
When I profiled all the players for this tournament, I said Schauffele's number 1 on my board. I like the odds at 25 to 1. Let's go ahead and play X.
Brady Cannon, Matt Humans, and Wes Reynolds are your weekly betting caddies and help you cash those tickets.
Don't be afraid to maybe take some longer odd guys.
Don't miss long shots. Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern on VSiN, the only golf betting show you need. Exclusively on Sirius XM Channel 204.
Hi, this is Doug Rice of the Performance Racing Network. Whenever the PRN crew heads to Las Vegas, we always stay at the South Point Hotel and Casino. You know, it's our home away from home. The South Point features great restaurants, free parking, and they go out of their way to make race fans feel welcome. So when you make your plans to visit Vegas and attend the South Point 400, it just makes sense to book into the South Point. The South Point also offers fantastic room and race ticket packages. Make your reservations now at southpointcasino.com.
It's more Racers Odds.
And welcome back once again, everybody. I'm John Roberts, Jeff Hammond, Steve Makinen with us here on Racers Odds. This is a joint project between the VSiN Network and PRN. You can see us, you can hear us on Sirius XM and see us on NASCAR.com as well. We're here with you every weekend to give you the up-to-date statistics and information you need to make the wise wager. And one of the first things we check every week is Steve Makinen's simulation. And Steve, that's already seems like it's paying some dividends so far. You have 3 basic favorites, and the simulation has showed that very clearly.
Yeah, I don't think it's a stretch to find that the 3 favorites are out there: Harvick, Hamlin, and Kyle Busch. They're the 3 guys that everybody expects to be at Miami beyond Truex at this point. With the stakes what they are, they're probably thinking these are the 3 top guys. They're trying to get there. So as I look at my simulation, I got Harvick, I got Hamlin, I got Kyle Busch. And then beyond that, Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott round out the top 5. I want to kind of piggyback, though, on Hammond's comments before about Kyle Busch. Not sure he's commanding this much respect anymore. Last week, as I watched him get passed a few times in green flag racing in Martinsville, it was kind of the first time I actually thought this just might not happen for this guy this year. He may have used it all up early. You may be overpaying for him. I mean, I see the prices have moved significantly towards him in a lot of wagers. So I'd be careful with that. I'd tread a little lightly. Hopefully, if you were in on some of these wagers, you got them before they moved. But simulation shows 3 favorites, and I guess the odds reflect it.
Yeah, and Steve, I agree with you with what you're saying there, and you keep watching, and everybody keeps watching and saying sooner or later it's gonna change, it's gonna break, it's gonna go back to like it was earlier this year. But the one thing I will say, everybody else has gotten better, got more focused. Their cars have gotten to where they are able to tune on them as equally as good as Adam Stevens and Kyle were doing early this year when they were winning and racking up a lot of stage points and building that insurance deal. And I think, again, that's where you're reflecting is from the past couple of years as well as earlier in the season. But right now, as we get into crunch time, it seems like they're not mounting that charge that we're so used to seeing out of that particular team. So far, Joe Gibbs Racing, the 11 of Denny Hamlin, along with the 19, I mean, they have been performing, just lights out. I mean, they're solid each and every week. And your simulations as well as end results are basically proving that out. But this weekend, I really feel strong. Qualifying 12th, unless they have got something that they have got hid, I don't look for them to be the force to challenge for the win today like we normally do.
Hey, Steve, when you look at the handicapability of this racetrack, it's kind of refreshing, though, that we're at one that grades pretty high, aren't we?
Yeah, this one grades out at a B. When I dug deeper into the numbers, how a driver performed at Texas specifically, how they're doing recently, those were the two most important factors. Qualifying was pretty far down the list. Practice speed, specifically 10 lap averages, was far more important than qualifying. So those are going to be the things that, they went into my handicapping for this race, and hopefully some of our listeners as well.
And also, Steve, it seems to me as if we had just a little bit less movement from the time of the opening odds. And I guess that may play something into the lack of importance sometimes of the qualifying here. But it seems like there was a little bit less movement. Is that correct to say?
Well, I would say the top group, they moved them quite a bit. Somebody really loves Kyle Busch today. And as we go through the matchups and the different groups, I'll point some of the stuff out, but there's some 70, 80-cent moves that don't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Exactly, yeah. So Denny Hamlin on top when you look at individual drivers here, and Kevin Harvick. When you look at the odds makers, Steve, what do you suppose goes in? Is it just the momentum that Denny Hamlin's riding lately to make him edge out Kevin Harvick when you look at a racetrack that's been a little bit of a personal playground lately for Harv?
Yeah, well, it's momentum, and it's also the fact that Hamlin did post a pretty strong happy hour. I think he was second in the 10-lap averages, so he has the speed. He's one of the guys expected to be at Miami in a couple weeks, and I guess fulfilling that destiny is probably one of the things that's on the odds makers' minds.
So, Jeff, an interesting group here at best 10-lap average. Clint Boyer leads the way right in front of Kevin Harvick. Then it's Hamlin. Then it's Kurt Busch as well, and Eric Almirola is up on speed as well to begin the week.
Yeah, and what I'm looking at when I see this is Clint Boyer, Stewart-Haas Racing, along with Kevin Harvick, Stewart-Haas Racing, Eric Almirola down there in like fifth. He's Stewart-Haas Racing. So I really feel like that they have got a pretty solid package here for Texas. Both of those drivers run well here, and I think they're showing their capabilities as well as during qualifying. They both have, pretty decent qualifying laps. So I think Stewart-Haas has got a good package for this weekend, and pretty much the same way we're talking about the qualifying was held here, and the impound scenario was held basically the same way in Indianapolis. So I really feel like got extra confidence knowing that this race car that Rodney Childers and the rest of his team brought this weekend should be good and should work well for Kevin throughout the day, and they should be able to make the right kind of adjustments to keep that 4 car where they need to, which currently being 14 points below the cut line, they need to go out, flex their muscle in both stages, and go ahead and try to finish it off with a win. But if they can't, they need to make sure they definitely get points this weekend. They got 0 at Martinsville, and that's one of the reasons they're in a hole today.
Now, when you're going to make your wager, though, this week, you got to take into consideration exactly what Jeff just said. This is an impound race, so different drivers had different scenarios going on and different agendas in terms of where they wanted to qualify and what they built into their car in terms of raceability and adjustability throughout the weekend. So, once again, if you like your racing fast, you're at the right place. Texas Motor Speedway is the place this afternoon. We're counting down to the green flag time bit. That'll be here before we know it. When we come back, we're going to dive into the head-to-head matchups where you find a good bit of your value each week when you're looking to cash a ticket. Stay with us.
VSiN is the Vegas Stats and Information Network. VSiN is analysis that's always on the money.
The total on this game, 8 flat.
VSiN is the home of legendary broadcaster Brent Musburger.
I do want to talk about the next big thing in Las Vegas.
VSiN is your all-access pass behind the counter of a Las Vegas sportsbook.
Trends don't pay the rent. They're looking at the number.
VSiN, what are the odds? Find out on Sirius XM Channel 204.
If you suffer from heartburn or other digestive-related disorders, then there is a new, safe, better, and natural alternative to better digestive wellness and heartburn relief. Praxid not only provides relief of heartburn, but Praxid takes a 360-degree approach to support better digestion, protect you from harmful bacteria, and also balance your stomach to improve digestive functions.
To order, call now 1-800-829-5735. That's 1-800-829-5735.
As states have begun the legalization of sports gambling, the entire sports landscape is changing.
I think we're going to see more and more states fall in line, and this gets legalized across probably all 50 states.
And so is the way you listen to Sports Talk Radio. I'm Brent Musburger, and on the Vegas Stats and Information Network, we follow the money and the games. It's sports talk you can bet on. So check out VSiN. Odds are you're going to like what you hear on Channel 204 and streaming on your phone or at home on Sirius XM connected devices and speakers.
Hi, this is Doug Rice of the Performance Racing Network. Whenever the PRN crew heads to Las Vegas, we always stay at the South Point Hotel and Casino. You know, it's our home away from home. The South Point features great restaurants, free parking, and they go out of their way to make race fans feel welcome. So when you make your plans to visit Vegas and attend the South Point 400, it just makes sense to book into the South Point. The South Point also offers fantastic room and race ticket packages. Make your reservations now at southpointcasino.com.
We're back with more Racers Odds.
And welcome back, everybody. Glad you're with us for this edition of Racers Odds. John Roberts, Steve Makinen, and Jeff Hammond with you as we get ready to go racing at Texas Motor Speedway. There are 8 drivers left. 7 are going for 3 spots in this last round of the playoffs before we set out our championship 4. And so now we're going to dive into the head-to-head matchups. And when you look at our first set of matchups, this is where you find the favorites. And Steve Makinen, this is also where we found a bit of the movement that was going on this week.
Yeah, there's some pretty heavy movement here. If you look at even Kyle Busch, let's say Denny Hamlin, you got 70 cents there. That's quite a move. Obviously, Hamlin's been sharp so far this weekend. He's one of the expected winners. But as we talked about, 3, if you want to call them heavy favorites, those are 2 of them, and you hit a 70-cent line moving there. As I interpret that, I'm saying Hamlin and Harvick. Those are the guys that odds makers like.
Well, one of the reasons why odds makers and wagerers alike should be looking at Denny Hamlin is the confidence on this team right now. Denny Hamlin told us earlier in the weekend that wherever they go, they expect to win.
I feel pretty good about, we gained on the cutoff line. Obviously, we had one of our competitors win, which is not what you want to happen, but we go to every racetrack thinking that we're going to win, and so when we come here this weekend and next, we're locked in on what do we need to do to win. So that's my focus. I don't want to have to count on points, but if we do, we're in the best spot of anyone thus far, and so we're going to do everything we can to keep that, and just keep having solid weeks, really from start to finish. Through the playoffs, the first round was kind of not so great, but after that we've just had solid practices, solid qualifying efforts, or we're qualifying where we think we should, and the races have been really good for us. So we just want to continue that trend and really not change anything, even though the stakes continue to get higher.
Well, the stakes are high right now. What's on the line for a winner of this race is a slot in that championship 4. So, gentlemen, let's take a look at our matchups. Number 1, Kyle Busch is matched up off the top at a -130. Martin Truex Jr., who just got his 7th win of the season, is a dog this time around to Kyle Busch. And then Chase Elliott and Kyle Busch are matched up there. Kyle and Denny Hamlin. And Kyle Busch, of course, was 10th here at this racetrack in March. Steve Makinen, anything standing out to you?
Well, actually, before we dig into these the entire matchup thing, I want to ask Hammond a question here about the mile and a half. So he kind of touched on a little bit before. How you group these? Because there's I guess the general belief that all these mile and a halves are the same. They're certainly not. There's a lot of speed difference at certain tracks. Like if I look at Texas, I try and maybe go back to races at Charlotte or at Atlanta, places where they tend to get them a little more speed, and maybe throw out the Las Vegas, the Chicagos. Those are different types of races. I'd like to know your thoughts on that.
No, some of them are a little bit more, a lot faster. Texas, you carry a lot of speed, and you maintain a lot of speed. The tires don't give up that much here, so you're always pretty much, running around here bumping into 200 miles an hour going into the corners. And that's one of the things that kind of separates this racetrack from a lot of others. And I think the introduction of the PJ1 earlier this year, it made the racetrack a lot more wider. And we talked about that. The guys can race around a little bit more. So aero and horsepower and being able to keep that hooked up for the entire run is very critical. And then it comes back to the pit stops at a racetrack like this, especially if it comes down to where we have to make a stop for green flag. And I think that's one of the things that's going to separate the men from the boys early on. And I think qualifying will be important if you can't run with the lead pack that could get you in trouble. I mean, looking at these numbers, I couldn't believe, like you keep talking about, the opening number, how it went from, for example, how Martin Truex Jr. went from even with Kyle Busch to all of a sudden being the underdog to Kyle. And I'm not seeing that. I really am not seeing it because, he's been to victory lane a lot more than Kyle has. And everybody's giving him the respect. I'm still kind of scratching my head. And some of these numbers and some of the odds, not even in matchup one, group one, but also all the way down into two, which I know we're going to get into. But Steve, this is one of the things, this is a racetrack that is not like anything we've seen recently when it comes to mile and a half.
Yeah, so as you look at these matchups, then the one I noticed here is the Harvick Truex. This is a 5-0 sweep in the last 5 races for Harvick over Truex. So there could be some value in that particular matchup with Harvick's a bit of a favorite, minus 150, but hey, you cash the tickets where you can.
Exactly, and that is the goal. When you look at goals for different drivers, I don't think anybody should say by any means, well, I'm not going to wager on Martin Truex right now because he's already locked in. But he has just as much incentive to win by virtue of knocking somebody else out. If somebody else wins and they guarantee themselves a spot in the championship 4, that's a guy that Martin's going to have to race. So when you're looking to make your wager, don't think that anybody's parking. Don't think that anybody's having a points agenda here. You need to win these races no matter who you are.
No, John, you're using the wrong word when it comes to Martin Truex. He doesn't need to do anything. He wants to. That's what I look for in a driver right now. He still wants to win. He wants the hardware. They can't take the hardware away from him, folks. I mean, things change from year to year. The win and the record books are what drives a lot of these drivers, and Martin Truex Jr. is one of those guys. I mean, I'm not going to say that Kyle Busch isn't. I'm not going to say that Kevin Harvick isn't. Every one of them feels the same way. There's no quit in them, and the idea of them not running hard or giving everything they've got, it ain't happening in this series. You're not going to see anybody out there just basically making laps.
Steve, in the first group of matchups, do you like any one in particular?
I may throw something on that Harvick versus Truex. That's about it, though. That's the 5-0 sweep. This is just Harvick's track. It's just hard to believe. Like Jeff, I wish I would have got in early in the week, but I think there's still value there.
Absolutely, guys. Let's move on to matchups number 2, and there we see some different drivers involved here. Of course, Chase Elliott has a best finish of 4th at this racetrack, and he's paired up with some heavy hitters. We see Hamlin, Harvick with Chase Elliott, and then also we see some Ryan Blaney matchups starting to sprinkle in here. Ryan is a plus 110 underdog to teammate Joey Logano. Now, again, we talked about the Kyle Larson, Joey Logano matchup there. Kyle Larson, again, 3 of the last 4 Texas races, he is DNF'd with an accident, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm not really, what you say, a big fan right now when it comes to Kyle Larson, even at this racetrack, and he can run around and wherever he wants to. But just for whatever reason, he has really struggled this racetrack, and the DNFs, I think, definitely make him kind of questionable. I would kind of pause and look at that, but when I look at this group, the one that jumps out at me is I really like the Ryan Blaney against Joey Logano, even though, it's a situation where finishing second last year, the way this car has performed, he seems like he has outperformed his teammates in the last few weeks, and I don't think anything's going to be any different this time.
Yeah, and Steve, I believe I like the Joey Logano-Kyle Larson matchup going with Joey to plus 120. What do you think?
I agree with you there. 4 straight in this matchup for Logano over Larson at Texas. Larson struggled. Logano has so much still going for him. One of these matchups I like on here is the Logano-Keselowski matchup. Something interesting happened at the conclusion of last week's race with Keselowski. He was up there racing, and like in the top 5 or 6, and all of a sudden he's battling with these playoff guys, and he moves down the bottom of the track to let guys go by him, almost like he got told, "Hey, get out of the way here. Let these Penske guys pass you." So I believe that the Logano is going to be the priority for Penske over Keselowski today, and as long as Logano is doing what he's supposed to, I think he's got an advantage in that matchup.
Hammond, what do you like out of that group?
Well, I can't argue with what Steve's thought process is, but the one that I don't know, still kind of like jumps out at me, I think it'd be a fun battle, is Kevin Harvick against Denny Hamlin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those 2 of your top dogs, for
Two
sure.
of your top dogs, and I mean, I still like Kevin. He's still, for whatever reason, they got Denny over him and giving him, the respect type deal is that I think it'll come back to bite you in the end.
In the third group of matchups here, we have more Kyle Larson sightings and also another Brad Keselowski, 2 other Brad Keselowski matchups. And then we see a young driver who is in William Byron has been coming on as of late. 2 top 10 finishes, 2nd at Martinsville. He was 6 here in March. So when you look at it, Steve, on the whole, a couple of drivers here to get your comments on William Byron being one, but oftentimes you have found some value in the matchups that involve Eric Jones.
Eric Jones has 3 straight top 4s here. He's at fourth place. So there's going to be some value there on Jones. I don't like the fact that he's matched up against Kurt Busch. I think he's one of the guys I would prefer today. Like we talked about it earlier, he's got the good news. He's got good speed. He was good in all practice sessions. So a lot of good things going for Kurt Busch. I wouldn't fade him in that one. But to Jones versus Byron, hey, that may be a place you could find some. Jones has 3 straight better finishes than Byron at Texas.
Yeah, so same situation here as Mr. Hammond was in. When I looked at this one earlier in the week and, made the move, I got Kurt Busch at -110. Now he's -150. There's a pretty big swing there. But nonetheless, that is the matchup I'm looking at for sure, is the Kurt Busch over William Byron, even giving up that 150 there. So also another one there, Eric Almirola, Daniel Suarez involved in that one. So what do you guys think out of this matchups number 3, Jeff?
Well, I think, it's hard to go against a guy. Maybe he's got a little bit mental promise as far as Kurt Busch is concerned. A good racetrack for him. Good news this week. But I also want to question or caution everybody. Well, William Byron's got 2 top 5s coming into this race. And it seems like all of a sudden he's hit his stride. He legitimately was in contention to win that race last weekend at Martinsville. And he's had 2 top 10 finishes and 3 career starts at Texas. So pretty good racetrack for him. I think he's got pretty decent speed today. I don't think I would rule him out in any scenario. So I would almost look at possibility of him being like an upset guy against your man, Kurt Busch, as well as Eric Jones.
Exactly. So those are the head-to-head matchups we're dealing with this weekend, but also we have some groups to get to here in just a moment. So here on the Racer's Edge, we're going to take a look at the groups. Your driver that you pick has to have outperform 3 drivers in the list as well. So we'll take a look at those groups when we come back. Stay with us, everybody. You're watching Racer's Odds.
You didn't think he'd put down the microphone completely, did you?
Greetings from Las Vegas.
Well, neither did we. Hear legendary broadcaster Brent Musburger on the Vegas Stats and Information Network.
I never told my wife how much fun I had when I was staying here for about 3 weeks. Oh, it's terrible living in a casino. It was the greatest 3 weeks of my life. This is the only book in town that's open 24 hours. There you go. Make that bet around 4 o'clock in the morning.
You don't need a dress code. Jammers are good.
Brent Musburger on the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Sirius XM Channel 204.
If you suffer from heartburn or other digestive-related disorders, then there is a new, safe, better, and natural alternative to better digestive wellness and heartburn relief. Praxid not only provides relief of heartburn, but Praxid takes a 360-degree approach to support better digestion, protect you from harmful bacteria, and also balance your stomach to improve digestive functions.
To order, call now, 1-800-829-5735. That's 1-800-829-5735.
All right. That's what I'm talking about, only on the Vegas Stats and Information Network.
How you feeling? I'm feeling good. How you doing, bro? I'm feeling good, man. How you doing? How you doing?
The Edge.
We did a
Weekdays,
3-hour
3 p.m.
race
Eastern.
The Raiders made some sensational headlines.
All-Star
I don't think
race.
you or I or anybody who seriously
Thank you.
handicaps the NFL saying, yeah, the
And
Raiders are going to be a playoff.
just thought I
That's
had
not
just a
public
great
about
show,
the
man. I
public
go
team,
in there.
especially in Vegas with
One
the excitement.
time,
What's that team going to be
I
here
said,
in 2020?
Only on the
Pennzoil
Vegas Stats and Information
Ultimate
Network, Sirius
Burnout
XM Channel
Challenge.
204.
And it's the Pennzoil Ultra.
Hi, this is
Burnout
Doug Rice of the Performance Racing Network. Whenever the PRN crew heads to Las Vegas, we always stay at the South Point Hotel and Casino. You know, it's our home away from home. The South Point features great restaurants, free parking, and they go out of their way to make race fans feel welcome. So when you make your plans to visit Vegas and attend the South Point 400, it just makes sense to book into the South Point. The South Point also offers fantastic room and race ticket packages. Make your reservations now at southpointcasino.com.
It's more Racers Odds.
And welcome back, everybody. We are racing today in the great state of Texas at the Texas Motor Speedway, one of the fastest joints around, and also a place where one driver can punch his ticket into the championship four. Now, Martin Truex Jr. has already done that, so he may be racing a little bit different today, but nonetheless, any of these drivers right now, no matter what the scenario, if you're wagering on a certain driver, they have the incentive to win. And Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson find themselves now almost in a must-win scenario, as there is one more race after this, that, of course, being Phoenix. Then we go down to settle it between the championship, among the championship four at Homestead Miami Speedway. So, guys, with that in mind, let's dive into these groups as we take a look at Group A. We have, again, some of the heavy hitters we always find in the first couple of groups. We have Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr., Chase Elliott, and Denny Hamlin. Now, just as a reminder, guys, if you pick one of these drivers and you wager on them, they have to outperform the other three. And, boy, Steve, this one, to me, when I look at it, it's pretty difficult. I mean, maybe you might want to put Chase Elliott at plus 440 in a different category, but between those other three, those are our three top dogs.
Yes, they are. And I actually want to comment on these first two matchups together because they have a similar ring to them. Harvick and Hamlin were dropped significantly in their odds from over the weekend here. Now, in the first one, Hamlin's line went down 140 cents. The other three guys went up 260 cents. So there alone, you have some value. Now, Hamlin, you're basically a flat tire or maybe a penalty on pit road away from getting some serious value on those other three drivers. And it goes the same in the second group with Harvick. So just something to think. Obviously, we've talked about how much we like Hamlin and Harvick, and there's no reason to really fade them. But if you're looking for any value, it could be in those other three guys.
Yeah, exactly. So when you're talking about the movement you get there, Steve, in Group B, Kevin Harvick opened up at plus 250, now finds himself at even money. And one of the reasons that Kevin says that they have been consistently running with the other top teams in the sports right now is their execution on pit road has been just about flawless.
We've been as aggressive on pit road as we've always been. I feel like, and I tell our young guys this, whether I have something to do with them or not, I mean, we still practice every week. Every week we go up and down pit road, in and out of the pit box, hard on the pit road, hard off of pit road. It's just not something that you can let your guard down with. I think as you look at, I feel like that's one of the reasons that our team is still in it. I don't feel like we've had that knockout speed that the Gibbs cars have had on a week-to-week basis. We've had it a few times and been able to capitalize on that, but I feel like we've done a good job at minimizing the mistakes, and we had 3 more weeks to do that, and hopefully you didn't jinx us. But it's been those types of scenarios. It's been solid execution of things, except for a few weeks that we've had here lately, but for the most part that have kept us in the mix all year.
So there is Kevin Harvick definitely in the mix, certainly today, and also one of his better racetracks coming up in Phoenix as well. So he is going to be a heavily betted upon favorite as we go into the next couple of weekends and perhaps a championship as well. But when you look at, let's move on to Group C right now from that Group B. And Group C has Keselowski, Kurt Busch, Eric Jones, and William Byron. Steve, I think if I'm looking at this one, I'm kind of liking Kurt Busch at plus 240.
Yeah, I've talked about Busch, what I like so far, and what I'm looking for him today. Plus 240. It seems like maybe the best value to me. Brad Keselowski was 20th in his in happy hour in his 10-lap average, so just kind of discounting him out of this one. Then you kind of minimize you shrink the field down a little bit, and you're dealing with 3 guys. So got some. If I was forced to, I'd take Busch. I don't think I'm going to, but that's the way I'd lean.
Yeah, I feel like that would be a pretty tough group if you were to wager on that. So Group D, Jeff Hammond, I think if I'm looking at this one, plus 200 with your Clint Boyer, he had the best 10-lap average, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was. He's got his car running pretty darn well. And, again, we keep talking about Stewart-Haas Racing. It seems like they've got a good setup for their cars this weekend. So I believe that they're definitely going to be some that's one driver I think you can kind of like have a little confidence on right now.
So, Steve Makinen, when we look at some of these groups with the drivers that aren't playoff contenders, usually running closer to the back of the field, on a couple of occasions when we look at Group E and Group F, you have told us before that there are some value back here. Sometimes you really like some of these groups because there's one guy, there's a couple that you can eliminate, and sometimes somebody you can really bet upon.
Yeah, of course. Anytime you get a group of 4 drivers, there's going to be some value when you look at it really closely. One of the things I found this week as I studied the last 5 races here at Texas is that the drivers who did not take 10 laps to form an average in their happy hours, they struggled. So the 2 guys that didn't this week that are part of groups are Buescher and Preece. So those are a couple guys that maybe in for a long day today, and maybe you can eliminate them from the groups you're looking at.
All right, so Hammond, this one we have Austin Dillon in the E group. We have Dillon, Stenhouse, Newman, and Menard. Who sticks out to you, if any?
Well, the only guy right now sticks out to me. I still go back to him on a regular basis, and one of the reasons why is as of late, and I know he's kind of faltered lately, but I still like Ryan Newman at a racetrack like this. This is his kind of racetrack, fast, kind of furious. He's won here before, and I think he's looking to finish off the year pretty dang strong. So I look for that 6 car to be probably pretty formidable, and I think against this group, I think that he's the standout and out of all of them.
All right, so one more group to take a look at, Group F. If we look at that, that includes Ryan Preece, Bubba Wallace, Michael McDowell, and Ty Dillon. Steve Makinen, anybody stick out here for you?
Nothing really stuck out there. Like I said, I eliminated Preece. I thought he's not going to do much. McDowell's a possibility. He had a pretty nice happy hour run compared to the rest, so maybe some value with McDowell.
All right, guys, so if I'm looking at the groups right now, I'm going back to D, Jeff, and perhaps Clint Boyer as being the one with the value there. What do you think?
Well, I think I agree with that, but before we get too far out of the groups, I'd like to go back to Steve and ask him to break something down for me, because early when I was looking at the Kevin Harvick bet that I made earlier in the week, I looked at this group bet that was when it opened at 250, 255, 255, 285, and I like that, again, thinking about Harvick and his success here. And when I broke it down a little bit further, he's the only driver out of this group that's ever won at this racetrack, multiple wins on top of that, lap sled and everything else. And I think, and then I look at when it went to as far as current odds, good would have been good to get on that bet then, or
of course it would have.
Okay, but again, I like what you said about possible upsets and values, because I'm looking there saying if I'm looking at a value, I've got to look at Ryan Blaney in that current situation as a probable upset.
Yeah. Now, when you're talking about going against a Harvick, you're probably going to have to find somebody who's capable of getting a top 1 or 2 finish. Now Blaney he's shown he can do that. So at plus 450, wow, that's a pretty nice price.
All right, so those are the groups, guys. We got to take a look back, though, when we come back to Racers Odds. We're going to take a look back at what our favorite bets of the week were, and they did not include any groups. We all went head-to-head matchups this time around as well, and we're also going to recap the odds for individual drivers to win this race. And once again, this place is absolutely fast, one of the newest surfaces in all of NASCAR, yet they spent a lot of time trying to make it older by dragging tires over it, and hopefully the PJ1, the grip substance, will provide great racing as well. So let's grab a quick break here on Racers Odds. We'll be back in just a moment.
Gone Racing.
There's still wheel to wheel.
The weekly NASCAR show that gets you ready for this week's big race and more.
Oh, yeah.
Take a ride with us to Victory Lane on Con Racing.
We just got these lines last night. It was plus 700 on Brad Keselowski. He's already down to plus 550, so I think we know where the money is.
Going that way.
And that's where my money would have been, too.
Thursday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern on VSiN, Channel 204, and Sirius XM NASCAR Radio, Channel 90.
Great job.
If you suffer from heartburn or other digestive-related disorders, then there is a new, safe, better, and natural alternative to better digestive wellness and heartburn relief. Praxid not only provides relief of heartburn, but Praxid takes a 360-degree approach to support better digestion, protect you from harmful bacteria, and also balance your stomach to improve digestive functions.
To order, call now, 1-800-829-5735. That's 1-800-829-5735.
Before the pros tee off for this week's golf tournament, the VSiN experts help you make the cut on long shots.
When I profiled all the players for this tournament, I said Shoffley's number one on my board. I like the odds. 25 to 1. Let's go ahead and play X.
Brady Cannon, Matt Humans, and Wes Reynolds are your weekly betting caddies and help you cash those tickets.
Don't be afraid to maybe take some longer odd guys.
Don't miss long shots. Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern on VSiN, the only golf betting show you need. Exclusively on Sirius XM Channel 204.
Hi, this is Doug Rice of the Performance Racing Network. Whenever the PRN crew heads to Las Vegas, we always stay at the South Point Hotel and Casino. You know, it's our home away from home. The South Point features great restaurants, free parking, and they go out of their way to make race fans feel welcome. So when you make your plans to visit Vegas and attend the South Point 400, it just makes sense to book into the South Point. The South Point also offers fantastic room and race ticket packages. Make your reservations now at southpointcasino.com.
We're back with more Racers Odds.
And welcome back once again, everyone, to Racers Odds. We are with you here every race day to give you the information and statistics you need to make the wise wager on NASCAR's top series. As wagering across the country becomes legal in more and more states, the landscape is changing, and NASCAR is definitely along for the ride. To provide the information that we need, that you need, rather, we have the editor of Point Spread Weekly, Steve Makinen, and also championship crew chief, Jeff Hammond. So, Steve, once again, to recap, we're going into a racetrack here with a grade B of handicapability. We don't see that kind of grade very often. So this is, what does that mean? Is it better for odds makers? Is it better for wagerers? Or is it better for everybody?
Well, the grade B actually means that as I studied past races against my simulations, the closest simulations I had were the higher grades. So the variance between where guys finished and where I projected them to. Texas had a pretty good history in that form.
And also, so far, your simulation has panned out big time with Kevin Harvick, because he was the guy the simulation kept pointing to, and he came out and blistered everybody in qualifying.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that I like to do I do this on the Point Spread Weekly version of the simulation, is I actually project where they're going to qualify, and then how they might fare in their happy hour speeds. And I had Harvick projected to do well. He did well. As far as I'm concerned, there wasn't a whole lot of reason to have these huge line moves. He should have been priced like he was now back on Tuesday.
I'm glad you brought that up. And throughout this year, since we've been doing Racers Odds, I can't remember the odds swings as dramatically as we've seen here at Texas. And I'm a little bit kind of like confused because of that. Maybe you can make me understand it better. Even when we've seen guys, that come in, were kind of high and they qualify well, yeah, we might see a little bit. But, I mean, when I look at these groups, just like we were talking about, the groups and even the early betting that I jumped on between Kyle and Kevin, it just looks like all of a sudden that the guys in Vegas were a little bit asleep at the wheel and opening odds. I'm just sorry. That's just why I took it.
I was actually going to say that perhaps there wasn't as much attention put into the opening odds as there should have been. Texas is a pretty projectable race. The guys who were expected to do well have done well, and the lines have moved towards them now. The odds makers know the stakes here. They know the power drivers, and the power drivers have performed as expected, and that's why you're seeing these lines move like they have, especially on Hamlin and Harvick.
And one interesting driver here, guys, we've been taking a little bit of a look at today so far has been Kyle Larson. He's somewhat in a must-win situation, 24 below the cut line. Finds himself still, though, at 10-1, Steve, despite wrecking out of 3 of the last 4 races. Is it just his is it recent races? Is it his tendency to do well on the mile and a half? What do you think puts him at a 10-1 as opposed to some of the other drivers that might be a little bit lower?
I think it's what you said at the last in the mile and a half performance, known for having speed. But again, we've talked about this a lot today. You can't group all these tracks together. There's different intricacies at every one, and Larson struggled here at Texas.
All right, so with that in mind, Steve, let's recap our best bets of the week. Why don't you start us out with your best bet of the week?
My best bet of the week, I'm going to stick with Ryan Blaney against the gentleman we just mentioned, Kyle Larson. Blaney's an underdog in this matchup, plus 130. Blaney's been solid at Texas. He has his last 5 races here, his lowest driver rating's been a 97. That even includes the spring race here when he finished 36. He had an overheating issue. He had 102, I think, rating in that. He led 45 laps. He's been really good at Texas. He's the guy I had as my sleeper for maybe potentially making it to Homestead. And if we look back maybe a few shows, we all talked about how we believe this playoff round was going to be really tough on Kyle Larson. And after watching him struggle with that Martinsville car, he maintained a pretty decent finish, but he was just nowhere to be competitive in that. So I think that destiny of struggling in this playoff round is going to be fulfilled, and I like Blaney in this matchup.
Yeah, so simulations and everything else points towards that lineup we just saw a second ago being shuffled up quite a bit with perhaps one of the playoff drivers punching his ticket in. Jeff Hammond, what's your best bet of the week?
Sticking with what I did earlier in the week, I'm going to take Kevin Harvick at plus, again, like I say, plus 120 over Kyle Busch. I think Kyle has been fading a little bit, and they made it too easy to make that determination early in the week because if you take a quick look at the current odds, they're totally changed. Now, Kurt Busch is at 120 and Kevin Harvick is at minus 140. So I felt like they were giving me a gift, and I decided to go ahead and take it, see how it works out in the long run. Hey, real quick, if we got time, if Hank could put up the 10-lap averages right there one more time for our viewers. I'd like to point out some of the stuff and the reason why we're drawing some of the conclusions that we do. You'll see Ryan Blaney, when I think about what Steve is saying about him, this guy's got speed. He's driving a Penske car, and Penske's and the Fords have been good at Texas as of late. You see my guy Kevin Harvick over there, and we talked about Clint Boyer also, Stuart Haas in a Ford, leading the 10-lap averages late yesterday on the final rounds of practice. So I'm looking for these guys, including Denny Hamlin. Another good reason why we're looking and liking these guys because they've bent up and showing that they've got some speed in their car.
All right, so my best bet of the week, when you go back to when the odds first came out, the way they were laid out was this was an even bet at minus 110 apiece. But now it has moved with William Byron becoming an underdog to Kurt Busch, rather. I'm still taking Kurt Busch at the minus 150. You'll notice that Steve and Jeff were both taking the driver with the plus number next to him. That means they make more money if they are correct when you bet in that direction. So I'm going to go ahead and give up what it's going to cost me to get in there, that minus 150, because of confidence I have over Kurt Busch outrunning William Byron this weekend. So we shall see. That is why we run the races, guys. We can do all the predicting we want, and sometimes things can go anywhere on the racetrack. But we here at Racers Odds try to give you the most information and history you can find and a little bit of expertise along the way.
I'm glad you said it because you might be kind of accusing me of picking low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
But sometimes when it's that easy, you got to go do it. Why take a chance? Why not ride a winner with a little bit more pump in your pocketbook?
Hey, it's about cashing a ticket, right, Steve?
That's what the man keeps telling us.
That's what it's all about.
All right, so there's another one of our groups. We see Kyle Busch is another somewhat of a mystery so far during this playoff run. And, Steve, you said just a moment ago you're getting the feeling like this just might not be Kyle Busch's time around, that he may be a guy to stay away from for the rest of this time in terms of some of these matchups or betting him to win.
Yeah, it was very curious last week. He's up in, I think, 6th place at the time, and he's bumping and banging with Ryan Newman. Ends up cutting a tire. It's almost like Newman upset him, and he couldn't shake it out of his mind, and he got into trouble on it. I just don't think he's in the right frame of mind now. The performances are reflecting it as well.
And that is another great thing to bring up when you're looking at wagering on a particular driver. We saw the dust-up between Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin last week. There's a lot of head games that are being played. Kevin Harvick was a master of it over the years. And when you're looking to pick a driver, if there is another driver you feel as if may have gotten into his head, Jeff Hammond, that really could, prevent them from finishing really well, and also at the same time prevent you from cashing a ticket if you put your money on them.
Yeah, you hate saying this, folks, but this is just the way it is in the NASCAR world, just like in any kind of sports. The guys that can focus and keep everything else outside of what their main objective is. In this case, Kevin Harvick, win the race, get locked into Homestead. You start thinking about the other drivers, whether they're going for a win or whether they're trying to make stage points to continue their journey to make it into the playoffs, or just to have a higher finish in the points. I mean, we don't want to leave that off the table with just a few races to go. Yes, winning or getting it to Homestead is number one, but there's a lot of drivers that want to win or at least have a high finish because, hey, their paycheck is affected by it.
Yes, and greatly. Your paycheck can be greatly affected if you have a championship on your side. And so far, we now have Martin Truex Jr. is the only guy guaranteed to get a shot at this year's championship. There are 2 more races to potentially get 2 more winners in, and then one driver will make it in on points. We know at least one driver is going to have to make it in on points if 2 different ones win in the next 2 races, but we just so happen to have 2 of Kevin Harvick's best racetracks stacked up here. So, Steve, thank you so much for the insight and information. We appreciate it. Always enjoy the simulation on Point Spread Weekly. And also, Mr. Hammond, thank you very much for your insight as well. And we want to thank everybody for coming along for the ride on this edition of Racers Odds.
A presentation of TRN, the Performance Racing Network.